In this video, I want to take a look at why you should set a custom record offset in Studio One to work with your audio interface. Let's get started. Okay, first things first, I know Gregor has done a video on this and also some stuff to do with MIDI that goes really into detail. So I'm going to link to that in the info card above or the description below. But in the meantime, just a really simple setup for audio interfaces. I wanted to talk about this because I think it's important. So I have two tracks over here. These are just print tracks. And also I've got a cycle range or a loop range that I've set. So if I was to enable my click, we've got a click track. What I'm going to do is open up the metronome setup, and this gives you the ability to render the click. Now you can render based on timeline start to song end. So this is your start and end marker. Or in this case, I'm just going to use the loop range, and let's render this out. So this is now rendered the click. We no longer need it active, and we need it as audio essentially. So I'm just going to turn it up a little bit. Now the thing I'm going to do, let me just make this a different color, something really bright, and let's also put it at the very top. Notice if I open up my preferences and I head to advanced and audio, I already have a 2-sample record offset because this is something that I set up, and I always just maintain this if I work in a new setup. But let's delete this, 0, enter. We'll click apply and OK. So now the idea here is you need to create a physical loopback. This is how we measure to see what our interface is giving us in terms of if it's sample accurate. So for the click track, I need to use an output that's not in use. Now, if you have a bigger system that has lots of I/O, this is fairly simple. If you're working on a smaller system, there's ways around this. You could, for example, use your headphone output and just grab a Y cable so that you could do the connection and make a physical loop back. The one thing you want to make sure of, though, is that you're not actually looping back and creating a feedback loop. So in this case, I'm actually going to use line out 1, 2. It's available on my patch bay, and I'm just going to patch this in as we do this video. So I'm going to open up my I/O, and we'll have a really quick look over here. Currently, I'm using 1, 2 as the listen bus, but this is something we can just deactivate our listen bus really quickly. And now I can use this as an available output. Now it's still called the listen bus because I named it this just so I knew that that's what I used it for. But basically now if I was to press play, we're not going to hear anything because this is outputting to output 1 and 2, and we don't have anything that we can monitor that with. Okay, so that's the first step. Now the second step is I need to basically create a physical patch. So for that, we're going to use these, just a basic set of patch cables. Now I've already patched this in ahead of time on my patch bay down below, and I've chosen to come out of the Quantum 1 and 2, and then the inputs, I'm going to set these to the Quantum 4848 line in 1, 2. So now these will both receive that. Now in terms of my monitoring, I'm going to make sure that monitoring mutes playback tape style is deselected. So let's go ahead and we're going to record one. Remember, I reset my offset to 0 samples. Okay, so let's do this first one. I've set a loop range and I'm in auto punch mode over here. Okay, so we've just recorded this. Now, if I zoom in really, really tight, take a look at this for a second. Notice, pick a point, just pick any point. Let's grab both of these and I'm just going to kind of zoom them into view. You need to find a point that's really kind of obvious. So take a look at this section over here, or maybe this section over here. And like I said, you need to be zoomed into like a super sample accurate level. Now, if I change my time base from bars to samples, this will give me my samples. And one other trick that really comes in handy for this is in my options in my arrange window, enable crosshair for cursor tools. If you have this disabled, we don't have anything, but if you enable this, you get this vertical line, and this kind of helps you in terms of measuring things. So I'm going to choose a point, and we can do an audio zoom if we need to, if we just want to, kind of like enhance that a little bit. So let's take a look at this point right over here. Now, I'm going to take my snapping off just momentarily. And what I need to do is I need to measure the difference here between these 2 points. So we could choose one as long as you know and you're 100% certain where they are. So I'm going to say this point over here, I'm going to drag across. Notice it says 1 in brackets. Now we drag right over to here. Right to here, it says 2. So this is indicating that there is roughly a 2 sample difference between those points. Now, Here's the interesting thing. Technically speaking, the track that I recorded back in is earlier in time than what I sent out. So this defies the laws of physics. We can't send something out and have it arrive earlier than the way we sent it. So there could be a number of different reasons why this happens. Maybe it's something that the driver's not reporting correctly. Who knows? I don't know. I just know that I need to fix it. So now that we've measured that and we know that it's 2 samples, and you can choose a couple different points as well if you want to be sure. Here's another point that I can reference is the same point over here. Do the same thing again here. I'm just going to highlight my cursor, drag across right till this point. Again, we see the 2 in those brackets there. So now we go into our recording preferences. We go to advanced audio. And in this case, I'm just going to set a 2 sample offset. Now, why 2 as opposed to -2? Okay. If this was 2 samples late, then we would need to go -2 to bring it earlier in time. But because this is technically 2 samples too early, that means we actually have to move it forward +2. So now we've done that change over here. We've gone 2 samples later, which means that it's going to arrive later. Now I'm going to bring up another track. This one I'm going to mute it. I don't need to hear this. This is also set to have the same input. I'm going to record enable this. We'll go back to the beginning and let's run this. Now we go back. I'm going to zoom in super tight, and then we're going to find 2 points again. So in this case, I'm just going to bring this directly underneath here. We'll bring both of these into full zoom. And now take a look. Any point that I find over here, you can see that these steps, these blocks, they are now sample accurate. This step over here, this one over here, this section over here, it might look slightly different there, but I can tell just visually that that's the exact same thing. So now we know that anything that we're recording is going to be sample accurate in terms of timing. So any performance that's being played and recorded, if we're playing along to tracks that are in our DAW against a click track or something that's already been recorded, we know that it's going to arrive in Studio One, sample accurate exactly where it belongs. And again, it doesn't matter why it was earlier than it should have been. It just matters that we need to fix it because we want it to be perfect. Anyways, that's all the time I have available for today. I hope that you enjoyed this content. If you enjoyed this, please consider hitting that like or subscribe button. Any questions or comments, leave them down below. I will do my absolute best to get back to you. And as always, we will catch you in the next video. Cheers.